coming back to your diet and your eating situation, you're narrowing that eating window on a regular basis. I think you said around noon or 1, you'll break your fast. Do you feel like you get into ketosis with that narrowed eating window on a regular basis? And is that one of the goals that you have by doing that?
I don't think so. I've never actually, I'm quite curious about this question myself. And I've never actually like purchased one of the devices that allows you to measure ketones in your blood. Perhaps I should, because I would be curious to see, but it would be my expectation when we're talking about roughly on the order of 8 p.m. until 12 noon the next day. So we're looking at about a 16-hour fast. I don't know that that would be sufficient for me to actually get into ketosis, or if I did, it would be quite early stages if I'm just starting to get those ketones up and running. But what I would say though is that in my mind, the benefit of the ketone is conceptually similar to the benefit of the short chain fatty acid. And for people who don't consume fiber, which again is 95% of Americans, getting those ketones does provide benefits that they are otherwise not getting, even if it's not as powerful as butyrate. Where my argument is I would love to see people try this other side where they're sufficiently fueling their gut microbes with those prebiotics that help to feed and fuel the production of the butyrate and the other short chain fatty acids. And then I like this idea of sort of metabolically switching in between, which is what's fasting basically is necessary to do that. So I do think it's a kind of interesting, although I haven't seen a good study to date. If anyone has one, I would love for them to send it to me. I do think it's kind of interesting, the idea of having your first meal being a ketogenic meal, because then you maintain, by having a low carb, high fat meal, you actually maintain yourself in that fasting, that mode of fasting where the production of ketones is actually possible. But I can't say that's what I actually do.
Well, let's talk about what you actually do. It's 12-1, you're starting to get hungry, you're going to break the fast. What would that look like?
So I tend to be a lighter lunch and heavier dinner guy. And again, let me be the first to say that textbook and what we should do, that's not it. We're actually much better off pushing our calories to the front and winding down in the evening and having less calories later in the day. Again, the reason why I make these choices has to do with our family. We have a family tradition. We have dinner with the kids every night and we have dinner together. And so that tends to be my biggest meal of the day. So my lunch will typically be lighter. Today for lunch, I had a Mediterranean bowl. So a lot of times I'll have something that's on the spectrum of either a burrito or burrito bowl or soup. By the way, I feel compelled to say this. Like I don't know how you feel about bread, but I think that one of the big problems with bread is the quality that exists in our markets. And I've always believed that if you made your own bread, like sourdough, it's like you can't. I mean, it shouldn't be the backbone of your diet, but you can't tell me that some sourdough is destroying your health. And so we recently got a bread maker. And the beauty of this is that I can have like delicious fresh bread, which by the way goes bad in 3 days because it doesn't have the preservatives like that our supermarket bread does. I can make a delicious loaf of amazing bread that makes our house smell so nice for $1.50 using organic whole wheat rye flour. So, and I make a rye bread, and then many times, Jesse, an example of lunch would be soup, but I'll add an extra can of beans. And that's just me because I'm a big bean guy. For people who are not used to eating beans, please don't do that. But those are examples: salads, soups, simple stuff like that. Sometimes burritos or burrito type bowl or something of that variety.
And then for dinner?
For dinner, so we're a typical family. Even though I have a cookbook with 100 different recipes, I think we're like everyone else, which is that we have sort of our rotation. So we have a taco night on Tuesday night. For us, our tacos are bean tacos, but it's basically like set out the tortillas, the beans, or my wife will make this, and it's actually in, I believe, my first book, Fiber Fueled. It's a walnut based taco filling. So, and the texture actually comes out quite similar to ground beef. So it doesn't taste like ground beef, but that's okay. It tastes good. And so those fillings, and then like a whole bunch of accoutrements. So whatever different accoutrements you like, and everyone makes their own based on what they like. So of course avocado has to be there. And then we have a spaghetti night, and I think what's different about our spaghetti. So we buy our sauce. Like I'm not trying to pretend that we make our own sauce. I love Rayo's. I used to call it Rao's, and people scolded me. So we get Rayo's, but the difference is that the sauce is a vehicle for adding stuff. And a lot of times we'll make a loaf of bread, and then we'll have extra virgin olive oil, and we'll dip into the EVOO. So in that combination, the heartiness, the filling nature of the bread with some EVOO, and then a bowl of spaghetti, whole wheat pasta, organic, with the sauce with all kinds of different stuff in it, it works pretty well for us. So we do that kind of thing.
Any meat at all? Fish, dairy, eggs?
I want to build a bigger tent. So I sit here and say that a Mediterranean diet is a plant-based diet. And that so is a vegetarian diet, so is a pescatarian diet, and so is a vegan diet. I don't think that vegan is the only way. In fact, I think that vegan is an ethical choice more so than a nutrition choice. Because actually nutrition is easier by not going that way. So in our house, we don't consume those foods. So like when we do milk, we do soy milk. And I will fully acknowledge there are some ethical elements to that particular choice. When I do kefir, I do a coconut milk kefir, and it is delicious and fantastic. But like kefir from dairy, again, that's a fermented food. That is the healthiest form of dairy that exists. So, and then when it comes to meat, to me, clearly at the top of the totem pole, if I were to arrange an order of priority, at the absolute bottom would be the ultra processed meats. And at the absolute top, I would put fish and shellfish. And the reason why, in part, is the omega-3 fats that we can get from them. So we live in Charleston, South Carolina, where oysters are very popular during cold months. I was never exposed to this prior to moving here. But actually, oysters, if you take a look at them, they have no central nervous system. They have no peripheral nervous system. There's no evidence that they socialize in any way. They have mechanisms that are quite similar to plants in most ways. It's just that their texture is like meat. And I actually believe that oysters are vegan and they're good for the environment. So during oyster season, which is going to be starting up like roughly November, I consume oysters. It's part of my diet.
Nice. But other than oysters, that's the only product that most people would consider animal product that you guys consume?
Yeah, that's the only product that we consume. But I will be the first to say that, for example, a healthy diet absolutely can include things that I'm not describing right now. Like there's, again, that there is an ethical element to some of our choices as a family. But, as an example, in the Adventist 2 study, which is often cited because in the US, that's the best study that we have to look at the effect of vegetarian and vegan diets. The longest lived population in that study were the pescatarians. So, and I'm in full acknowledgement of that. I think if we're gonna cite the Adventist 2 study, we have to acknowledge what the data says.
What about seed oils? A lot of controversy in the health world these days, avoiding those, the toxic impact on cell membranes. Do you include any of those in home cooking? Do you worry about them when you eat out? How do you think about them?
We used to eat out more. We don't eat out much, and part of this, Jesse, is because I have 2 kids who are under 2, so my wife and I, we stay home and we eat most nights. Um, here's my perspective on this. So, first of all, I would never make the argument that a person should go out of their way to add seed oils to their diet. Fried food clearly is not good for us. There's evidence. It doesn't matter what it is that you're frying. It's not good for us. And there's evidence that it inflicts harm on our microbiome. All right. I think it actually goes beyond those oils at room temperature, that it's the heating is the problem. Okay. Do I think that seed oils are the worst thing that exists in all of nutrition? The answer is no. And I don't think that's what the data says either. I think that we can definitely do worse than seed oils. And there are definitely examples where if you replace certain things with seed oils, actually people get healthier. Again, I'm not advocating for them. The part that I do advocate for is that although I don't think it's an absolute requirement, because within the plant-based world, as I'm sure you know, but many people may not, there's a quite large pocket of people that are no oil, zero oil. That's okay. But the evidence with extra virgin olive oil, from my perspective, is quite clear. And among the oils, to me, extra virgin olive oil is the healthiest form that exists. I try to avoid cooking and heating the oil whenever possible.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
I'm just going to say, this has been a game changer for me. I always get my morning sunlight by 9 o'clock. Through that light exposure, you are producing serotonin in the gut, which helps to stimulate your gut motility, which is a healthy gut, is going to ultimately shape your gut microbiome.